And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. I hope you're having a great first week to the 2013-14 season. When we left you, we were just getting ready to tip everything off. Of course, the first game of the season was at midnight between two men's teams who decided, let's play overtime at midnight, because that's exactly what all the staff wanted to do at the game, that's for sure. But it's been a terrific first week. Welcome to the show. You may be noticing something a little bit different if you haven't figured it out already. We are not live tonight, and I apologize in advance. We are actually pre-recording due to a scheduling conflict on my end, plus preparations for the Hoopsville Classic at Stevenson University. Talk about that in just a minute. So we are actually a completely pre-recorded show tonight. Thought that might be a little bit easier to pull off. I was wrong. It certainly was great to have guests come on at different times and record them, but it's not easier to necessarily not just do it live in a 2-hour frame of mind. Don't know, as I am recording this right now, whether this is a 2-hour or 2-hour plus show, but we certainly hope you will enjoy it. I will start by saying I apologize for the technical difficulties that many and all of you experienced last week on the opening show of the season. To say the least, not much we could do. We had a lot of things going against us, apparently, whether we knew it or not. We are in the process of working on solutions for that down the road. Don't know when those will be in place. You may have to deal with some of the glitches along with me until January, when we finally get things up and going. Furthermore, you're going to see some glitches in this show as well. Some of the recordings just did not, you'll see me flashing at the camera there, did not really like to stay synced, as it were, and there's nothing I can do to fix it without spending countless hours that I do not have to solve it. So I apologize now. In many of the interviews and segments, you're going to start to see some lip flap, and for those of you who may not understand what I'm talking about, my lips will be moving, but the audio will certainly not jive with my lips. And there is a long interview with Gordon Mann coming up by the end of it. I haven't looked at it because I don't want to even see it. I have a feeling that could not look good by the end. So I apologize now that some more technical problems, but you can also just listen and not watch. Anyway, lots to cover on this show tonight. Some great topics to talk about. I will tell you now, we will not talk about the one that made national headlines. If you have not heard the national headlines, fine. If you have not seen my response to those national headlines, I suggest you do. You can go to our Twitter account at D3Hoopsville and find my latest rant regarding a particular men's basketball program, which I ranted about last year. I have decided enough is enough, and I am done. I will not talk about that men's basketball program on this show, on social media at all, until they actually garner a reason for me to talk about them. It means I will not talk about them until they make the NCAA tournament, which they have not done, I believe, since 2001. I will not talk about them until they have won a conference game and are playing in the NCAA tournament, meaning they have actually accomplished something against their brethren or their common opponents or worthy opponents. I will not talk about them or say their name until they do so. Hats off to the player who did his job, but shame on the coaching staff, and I mean now the entire staff, and shame on the administration, and I mean the entire administration, for what has become a sham of a story. I'm done. I've had enough. Start playing basketball in March. I'll start talking about you. As for the good things in basketball, we had a number of upsets this already in the first week. Bravo to schools. Williams losing to Southern Vermont on the first night. We will talk to head coach Dan Engelstad from Southern Vermont about that victory and then the unfortunate letdown the next night against Rutgers Newark. We will also talk to Gary Stewart coming up, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about the Stevenson program. Mainly, we're talking to him about the Hoopsville Classic, but his program is getting some attention in his own conference. We'll find out why. We'll also talk quite a bit about women's basketball tonight, and the reason being is there are two players playing, and there could be more. I'll say that now. There could be more. But there are two particular players who ended up playing for some high-profile Division I programs who decided after a season with those said programs the Division III was a better fit, and they have varying reasons. We'll talk to Sydney Moss, who played for Florida last year, is now playing for Thomas More and transferred. Find out her reasons for her transfer, find out why it was so important to her to transfer, but more importantly, why she thought Division III was the best fit for her. It's a real YD3 moment. She doesn't knock Division I in any way, but she explains why Division III is better for her. We also talked to Lauren Avant at Rhodes, who actually played at Tennessee. Funny story, she committed to Tennessee, I think, in grade 8 or 9. She played for the great Pat Summitt. Talk about why she decided to transfer, different reasons than Sydney Moss, and how it has worked out for her. She's now in her third season at Rhodes, and the Lynx are certainly now as a preseason top 25 looking poised to have a really good season, especially with Avant playing. Now, quickly back to Moss, you may recognize the last name and go, huh, that's interesting. Well, yes, her father is actually wide receiver in the NFL, or at one time in the NFL, Randy Moss. We'll talk about that relationship a little bit as well. So great conversation with those two ladies. Being that it's pre-recorded, I've already had this conversation with them. It was terrific. I enjoyed absolutely every moment with the two fine ladies. They are a testament to their institutions and their programs, and certainly you will enjoy the conversations as well. And talked to Gordon Mann. We talked more about women's basketball, also the quirkiness of Hope versus Calvin in women's basketball on November 19th. And yeah, it was a conference game. No, it wasn't a tournament game that just happened to have Hope and Calvin end up playing each other. It was a conference game. And that kind of dove into the topic of conference games are getting earlier and earlier in the year. Look for a Hoopsville rant in the near future about why that's unfortunate. Also, as I mentioned, talked to Gary Stewart at Stevenson. Hoopsville National Invitational Classic second annual is coming up. 10 great teams. As you're watching this, if you're watching this when it normally airs at 7 o'clock on Thursdays, thank you for tuning in on Thursday and clicking play on the play button and listening to the show. The tournament is coming up tomorrow / Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 3 top 25 teams, 5 total that are receiving votes. We also have 5 NCAA tournament teams. 3 of those teams, those all in the top 25, are Elite 8 teams from last year. So lots of good basketball expected. Even the teams who weren't NCAA tournament teams, very good. I think we have like 4 coaches who were conference coach of the year, if not last year, in their existence. That tells you how good their programs are, at least how good they are. So hats off to them, to be sure. It's great basketball. Friday, 12, 2, 4, 6, and 8 Eastern Time. Then Saturday, it will be on 3, 5, and 7 Eastern Time, and then Sunday, 1 and 3 Eastern Time. If you are a Laverne fan, get up and have breakfast or brunch with us on Friday morning, as they will tip off at 9 o'clock your time, noon our time. And they will play a little bit later on Saturday. You can have actually brunch because the game's at 3. You can have like an early lunch or a brunch with us. Great basketball, to be said. I highly encourage you, if you have the opportunity, are in the Mid-Atlantic region, please take the time to come down and see these games. These student athletes are terrific. These coaches are awesome. You can get in. The tickets are as follows. You can get them at the gate. It is $10 for Friday, $7 for Saturday, and $5 for Sunday. Or you can buy all 3 days for $15. So if you want to catch a bit of every day or all of the games, $15 total is your number. You can again get them at the gate. There is a link at Stevenson's website for tickets if you want to buy them ahead of time. But at this point in time, just go to the gate and pick them up there. Also, all 3 games, and we failed to mention this with Gary Stewart, have something, or all 3 days have something to do with charity. Special Olympics will be honored on Friday, and each team will have an honorary captain. Looking forward to that. On Saturday, Boys Club of Maryland will be featured. And then on Sunday, NABC Coaches versus Cancer will be the spotlight charity. Proceeds from the weekend, some of the proceeds from the weekend will go to those 3 charities. But more importantly, and a great article written in the program, should you go to the event, has to do with how these charities really just getting their recognition and getting their names out in front of people is sometimes just as important as money, if not more important. And we certainly hope people will be involved with that. Of course, Special Olympics near and dear to Division III as well. So looking forward to that. Good basketball to be had. It is a classic. It is not a tournament. We do have a top 25 matchup or top 20 matchup in St. Mary's versus Cabrini on Friday night. We have a very good matchup in Trinity, Texas versus Ohio Wesleyan on Saturday, and then another top 25 matchup on Sunday between St. Mary's and Middlebury. But that doesn't mean the Salisbury's, Keystones, Laverne's, as previously mentioned, and Stevenson's are not going to have good games themselves. Stevenson's actually playing Middlebury, so it'll be looking forward to that. We will actually talk to Gary Stewart about that coming up. But again, another terrific week and start to the season in men's and women's basketball in Division III. We're looking forward to moving forward. Again, apologize for any of you who had difficulties last week. I can guarantee you this. The only difficulty you're going to have here is if you're watching me, there will be a lip flap at one point. You're going to be, well, what the heck? The audio is behind the video. Yeah, and there's nothing I can do about it until we get some fixes in here. A couple of things of note that I just want to throw out at you. A couple of things we're thinking about trying in this season. First and foremost, maybe adding a couple little fun segments. One, the School of the Week will be returning, just not sure of how and when just yet, but we will be bringing that back to the forefront. Also going to probably add something kind of Keith Olbermann-esque, not in the craziness of Keith Olbermann, but a cheer and jeer of the week. We're not sure when we'll start that either, but we'll cheer on something that we saw in Division III from the previous week. We'll jeer something we saw in Division III the previous week. It doesn't mean we're going to be negative necessarily in our jeers. The jeer might just simply be a team who was, let's say, undefeated or whatnot, loses a game they should never lose because maybe they were looking at a team ahead of them somewhere, and they shouldn't have lost the game. That could be a jeer. That could be a team that may have cost themselves the NCAA tournament because they didn't pay attention to what they were doing. That could be a jeer. You never know. There could be lots of reasons. It's a little bit different than a rant. It's just to point out something. We will be trying to bring back the rant a bit more than I always have promised in years past. You may have seen the earlier rant this week. We will not broadcast that rant tonight. I do have one ready to go. Rant doesn't necessarily mean I'm against something either, by the way. You'll notice tonight I'm not necessarily against something in my rant, but it is my opportunity to have a little bit of an op-ed moment. I hope you don't mind. As always, please follow us on Twitter. Hashtag or username is at D3Hoopsville, as you can see plainly at the bottom of your screen. We also encourage you to use the hashtag Hoopsville, and I've got two reasons behind that. One, it's a great way to stay with the conversation, just like D3H is a great way to stay involved with the conversation in Division III basketball, or D3FB in football, D3HKY in hockey, et cetera, et cetera. D3 Lax in lacrosse. The other reason is there is another group, somehow have a Hoopsville name, who've been using the hashtag in the last 6 to 9 months, and I would like to maybe encourage everybody to realize we were the ones who started using that hashtag many years ago. Not many, but several years ago. Shameless, I know, but do me a favor. If it can work, it can work. If it doesn't, we don't lose anything in the process. Also, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Would love to hear from you there as well. Certainly another social media outlet. Of course, email hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We encourage you to email us, tweet us, or Facebook us any thoughts you have on teams we should be talking about. Also, players maybe we should talk about, or coaches we should talk about, or any other story that might be out there that you would like to bring to our attention. Please feel free. We certainly know what's going on in Division III, but that doesn't mean we may not miss something, like missing that the Hope Calvin women's basketball game was actually a conference game. When you see it on the schedule, you just think it might be a glitch and that was a tournament game. No, in reality, it was a conference game. Gordon and I will talk about that later. But stuff like that, if you see something that you want to bring to our attention, please reach out to us. Interaction is always best, and we certainly will appreciate it. So there's lots to cover tonight on Hoops. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, Gary Stewart will sit down with me, and we'll actually be at Stevenson for this. We'll talk about the upcoming Hoopsville Classic and how we're looking forward to it and what we hope for the future. But we'll also talk to him about a Stevenson men's basketball team. They were picked by all the coaches, and I don't know where Coach Stewart put himself, but picked by all the coaches to finish second in the MAC Commonwealth. Seems a bit surprising. They've got some good talent, but the MAC Commonwealth, on top is Alvernia. Albright's been pretty good, but did anybody catch the score against Wesley on Wednesday? Wesley beat them 101-51. Lebanon Valley is at the bottom of the conference. Seems surprising. So what might be behind Stevenson being picked second? Well, we talked to him about that along with the Hoopsville Classic. Again, we also talk a lot of women's basketball on the show tonight. And please watch the whole show and support us. By the way, one other little note about what we might be trying in the coming year or this season. We might try a special long-form show in January to talk to as many coaches as we can. We also may be looking at ways of being able to help you support us in a way. But we'll have plenty more on that down the road as well. Again, on Twitter, at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville, Facebook.com/Hoopsville, and of course, Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight on this specially pre-recorded show. When we come back, Gary Stewart from Stevenson will join us. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.